great hall of the Galactic Council hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 spacefaring civilizations filed into their designated seats. The massive dome-shaped chamber had been carved from a single asteroid, its walls embedded with bioluminescent crystals that cast a soft blue glow across the assembly. At the center stood the speaker's podium, where only matters of utmost importance to galactic stability were presented. Today was such a day. Elder Tay shuffled slowly toward the podium, his ancient body supported by both a hovering gravity disk and his ceremonial staff. As the oldest living member of the Council and representative of the Pax Cephalidae, one of the first species to achieve interstellar travel, his words carried tremendous weight. The chamber fell silent as he reached the podium, his wrinkled face solemn under the spotlight. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice surprisingly strong despite his frail appearance. "I have studied the emergence of new spacefaring species for over 300 cycles. Never before have I called for an emergency session. Until now." The main view screen activated behind him, displaying a small blue-green planet, Sol 3, third planet of an unremarkable yellow star at the edge of the Orion Arm. The dominant species calls themselves humans, and their world Earth. The screen shifted to show cities, vehicles, and humans going about their daily lives. They appear unremarkable. Pre-FTL technology, nuclear capability but limited to their own solar system. However, appearances deceive. The images changed to historical footage. Ancient humans hunting with spears, medieval battles, world wars, nuclear explosions, and space exploration, all compressed into a rapid sequence. "Observe their developmental timeline," Elder Tay continued. "From stone tools to space travel in less than 10,000 years. An evolutionary blink of an eye." Murmurs spread through the chamber as the council members processed this information. But technological advancement alone is not my concern. Elder Tay tapped his staff, and new images appeared. Humans rebuilding after disasters, adapting to different environments, and recovering from catastrophes. They evolved from prey animals to apex predators. They survived multiple mass extinction events. Their history is an unbroken chain of conflict both against their environment and themselves, and yet they continue to advance. His voice dropped lower. They do not merely survive conflict, they thrive because of it. From the upper tier of seats, Director Kim of the Hegemony of Unified Systems leaned forward, his military uniform adorned with conquest medals. The Hegemony was relatively new to the galactic stage, only a few hundred years of interstellar capability, but they had rapidly expanded their territory through strategic subjugation of resource-rich worlds. "With respect, Elder," he called out, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "You make these humans sound like some mythical warriors. Our reconnaissance shows primitive defenses and divided planetary governance. Their technology is centuries behind ours." Elder Tay fixed his gaze on Director Kim. "I am not concerned with their current technological status, Director. I am concerned with how they respond to threats." He turned back to address the entire council. "The Observational Corps has documented 17 cases where human nations, on the brink of defeat, developed revolutionary technologies or strategies that turned seemingly hopeless situations into victories." The screen displayed more footage. Guerrilla fighters overcoming superior forces, scientists making breakthroughs under pressure, nations unifying against common threats. They call it, "Necessity is the mother of invention." We might call it evolutionary, adaptation at an unprecedented speed. In the middle rows, Ambassador June of the Diplomatic Corps raised her hand. "What precisely are you suggesting, Elder? We have protocols for integrating pre-FTL civilizations into the galactic community." Elder Tay nodded slowly. "I am suggesting we delay contact. Let them mature beyond their violent tendencies. Let them reach the stars on their own terms when they've outgrown their warlike nature." Director Kim scoffed loudly enough for those nearby to hear. His aide, Officer Sung, leaned in to whisper something, and Kim nodded with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The Hegemony appreciates the Elder's caution," Director Kim announced, rising to his feet. But we cannot ignore the substantial resources in the Sol system, resources that could benefit many civilizations, including our own. Elder Tay's expression hardened. You mean resources that would primarily benefit the hegemony's military expansion? I know your pattern, Director. Finding vulnerable civilizations, exploiting them under the guise of upliftment. The chamber erupted into side conversations. The speaker, a towering insectoid being, raised all four of her arms for silence. We will put this matter to a vote, the speaker declared. The question before the council: shall we place the Sol system under protection status, forbidding contact, until humans achieve independent FTL capability? The voting commenced, holographic symbols appearing above each representative's seat. The results materialized on the central display: 38 for protection, 9 against, with the hegemony and its client states forming the opposition. The motion carries, announced the speaker. Sol 3 is now under protected development status. All civilizations are forbidden from initiating contact. As the session concluded, Elder Tay watched Director Kim and his entourage exit hurriedly, already deep in conversation. The elder felt a deep unease settle in his ancient bones. Later that cycle, in his private chambers, Elder Tay reviewed additional human historical records when his aide entered with urgent news. Elder, our monitoring outposts have detected unusual activity. Multiple hegemony warships have left their regular patrol routes and are moving in coordinated patterns toward the outer rim. Elder Tay closed his eyes briefly. Toward Sol. It appears so, Elder. Send word to the speaker immediately. The hegemony means to disregard the council's ruling. Elder Tay gazed at the final image on his screen. Humans planting their flag on their moon, their first step into the cosmic ocean. And may the stars have mercy on them when they discover what humans are truly capable of. The first signs came from the Deep Space Monitoring Station in the Atacama Desert. Astronomer Jiwoo was just finishing her night shift when the anomaly alerts began flashing across her screens. She rubbed her tired eyes, thinking it was just another false positive from solar interference. But as she examined the readings more closely, her heart began to race. Dr. Hyun, she called out, her voice wavering slightly. You need to see this. Her supervisor hurried over, coffee mug in hand. His eyes widened as he looked at the screen. Those are artificial signals, he whispered, and they're approaching fast. Within hours, observatories around the world were tracking the objects, 20 of them massive in size, decelerating as they approached Earth orbit. The news spread like wildfire across social media before governments could contain it. Blurry, photos and videos of strange lights in the sky flooded the internet, along with theories ranging from the scientific to the absurd. In an underground military facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sunwoo stared at the satellite feed showing the alien vessels positioning themselves over major cities across the globe. He'd spent 30 years in military service, including 3 combat tours, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Status report, he demanded, keeping his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. Sir, they've positioned ships over New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, New Delhi, Tokyo, and 13 other major population centers, responded Colonel Minji, her fingers flying over her keyboard. No hostile actions yet, but our communications networks are experiencing increasing interference. The general nodded grimly. And Project Watchman? Operational, sir. The hardened systems are online and unaffected by the interference. Project Watchman had been humanity's best-kept secret for the past decade. After inexplicable signals had been detected from the edge of the solar system years earlier, a coalition of world powers had quietly established contingency protocols, building communication networks and defense systems designed to remain operational, even under extreme conditions. Most civilians had no idea it existed. Put me through to the Joint Chiefs and the Security Council, General Sunwoo ordered, and activate all Watchman protocols. We've prepared for this day. Aboard the Hegemony command ship hovering over what the aliens identified as New York City, Commander Park observed the blue planet with satisfaction. This was her 3rd planetary subjugation mission, but her first as commander. Success here would ensure her promotion to the Hegemony's inner circle. All ships in position, Commander, reported Officer Lee from his station. Electromagnetic pulse weapons charged and ready for deployment. Excellent. Commander Park settled into her command chair. Begin the standard intimidation protocol. Jam their communications, deploy the EMP weapons, and broadcast the surrender demands in all their languages. The officer nodded, initiating the sequence that had broken the will of a dozen other civilizations before first blood was even drawn. The hegemony strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, cripple infrastructure, and demand surrender before the primitive species could organize any meaningful resistance. EMP weapons firing, announced Officer Lee. Commander Park watched with satisfaction as waves of electromagnetic energy cascaded down towards the planet's surface. Cities should be going dark now, panic spreading as their primitive technology failed. But then Officer Lee's voice came again, confusion evident in his tone. Commander, I'm detecting unusual activity. The electromagnetic pulses are having minimum effect. Their military installations should be disabled, but they're still operational. Impossible, Commander Park snapped, rising from her chair. Check your readings again. Confirmed, Commander, they appear to have shielded their critical infrastructure. And there's more. They're activating defensive systems globally, in a coordinated response. This wasn't supposed to happen. Pre-FTL, civilizations were supposed to be disorganized. Their militaries fragmented along national lines, yet somehow the humans were mounting a unified defense. In Washington, D.C., President Jin addressed an emergency session of world leaders via the Watchman communication network, which had remained operational despite the alien attempts to disable Earth's communications. Today, humanity faces its greatest challenge, she stated firmly. But we are not unprepared. For years, we've suspected we weren't alone. For years, we've been quietly preparing. Today, we stand together not as separate nations, but as Earth. The response was unanimous. Ancient rivalries and border disputes were set aside in the face of an existential threat. In orbit, Commander Park was growing increasingly concerned as reports flooded in from the other hegemony ships. The humans were launching countermeasures, primitive by hegemony standards but deployed with unexpected coordination and effectiveness. Commander, Officer Lee's voice was now tinged with alarm. Multiple Earth nations are launching ballistic missiles at our vessels, Commander Park almost laughed. Ballistic missiles? Our shields can easily... Her words were cut short as the entire ship shuddered violently. Report, she demanded. The missiles, Officer Lee stammered. They've been modified, fitted with some kind of focused electromagnetic device. 3 have penetrated our outer shields. Before Commander Park could respond, more alarms blared across the bridge. Fighter craft approaching. Hundreds of them. This was inconceivable. The human aircraft were pitifully outdated compared to hegemony technology, but they were swarming towards the alien ships in coordinated attack patterns that should have been beyond their strategic capabilities. On the lead human fighter jet, Captain Jinwoo knew this might be a one-way mission. Their aircraft had been hastily retrofitted with experimental weapons based on theories about potential alien technology, theories that might be completely wrong. Remember your training, he said to his squadron over the secure channel. Hit them with the EM pulses first, then the conventional weapons in the blind spots. If that fails, he didn't need to finish. They all knew the backup plan. Their aircraft were loaded with enough explosives to cause significant damage even to these massive ships, if they got close enough. For Earth, someone said over the comm. For Earth, they all responded. The first wave of fighters began their attack run. In his underground bunker, General Sunwoo watched the battle unfold through satellite imagery and pilot feeds. The alien vessels were powerful, but they clearly hadn't expected such immediate and coordinated resistance. 3 enemy ships were already showing signs of damage. Sir, Colonel Minji reported, the Chinese and Russian forces have engaged the vessels over their territories. Indian and European forces are launching now. The general nodded. And the special weapons? The particle beam prototypes are being moved into position. 15 minutes until they're online. Aboard her increasingly damaged flagship, Commander Park made the hardest decision of her career. Signal all vessels, she ordered, her voice tight. Tactical retreat. We regroup at the secondary position. Officer Lee looked stunned. Commander, we've never retreated from a pre-FTL species before, and we've never encountered one like this before, she snapped back. Execute the order. As the hegemony ships broke orbit and accelerated away from Earth, leaving 3 damaged vessels behind, humans across the planet watched in disbelief. In some places there was celebration, in others, solemn reflection on those lost in the brief, but intense battle. But in command centers around the world, military leaders and scientists knew the truth. This wasn't victory. It was only a reprieve. The aliens would return, and next time they would be prepared for humanity's defenses. In the Atacama Observatory, now serving as an early warning station, Jiwoo watched the alien ships disappear from her screens. What happens now? She asked. Dr. Hyun quietly. The older scientist placed a hand on her shoulder. Now we prepare, because they'll be back, and we'll need to be ready. 6 months had passed since the first attack. 6 months of frantic preparation, of humanity united by a common purpose as never before in its turbulent history. The world had changed overnight, transforming from a collection of competing nations into something new, a planet with a single goal: survival. In what had once been a remote aircraft testing facility in Nevada, now stood the largest manufacturing complex on Earth. Workers streamed in and out at all hours, the facility operating around the clock. Inside, engineers and scientists labored over strange alloys and components salvaged from the 3 downed alien vessels. Dr. Hyejin wiped sweat from her brow as she examined the alien power core under specialized containment fields. She had been a theoretical physicist before first contact. Now her theories were being tested in the most practical way imaginable. The energy density is unlike anything we've ever seen, she explained to General Sunwoo, who had flown in from Central Command for a progress update. It's not just advanced. It works on principles we're only beginning to understand. The general nodded, his face etched with new lines of exhaustion. Can we replicate it? Not yet, Dr. Hyejin admitted. But we've managed to adapt some of their shield technology to our defense grid. And the weapon systems. A loud explosion from the testing range nearby interrupted her, followed by cheers from the observation deck. That would be the new prototype, she added with a small smile. We've reverse-engineered their targeting systems. Accuracy has improved by 400% since last month. Time is running out, the general said quietly. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected movement. The hegemony fleet is returning, and it's much larger this time. Dr. Hyejin's smile faded. How long do we have? 3 weeks, maybe less. Across the world, similar conversations were happening in research facilities, military bases, and government offices. Humanity had bloodied the nose of their attackers, but everyone understood what was coming next: a full-scale invasion. Indy. Orbit around a gas giant at the edge of the Sol system, Director Kim personally oversaw the gathering of the hegemony's grand fleet. 300 warships, including his massive command vessel, assembled in precise formation. The largest military force the hegemony had ever deployed against a single planet. Status report, he demanded, pacing the expansive bridge of his flagship. Commander Park stood at attention, still bearing the shame of her failed first assault. All vessels report ready, Director. Weapons systems calibrated specifically for Earth's defenses. Our new shields have been reinforced against their electromagnetic attacks. Director Kim nodded curtly. And our intelligence? Complete analysis of their defense capabilities based on the first engagement. They're primitive but resourceful. We've identified the locations of their new defense installations and command centers. Our first strike will target these facilities. Good. Director Kim turned to gaze at the tactical display showing Earth, a small blue marble from this distance. I want this operation concluded quickly. The Galactic Council is still debating whether to send observers to enforce their protection order. With respect, Director, Commander Park ventured carefully. These humans have proven unusually adaptive. Perhaps we should consider the diplomatic approach the Council recommended? Director Kim's expression hardened. The Council is, weak, Commander. Resources are power, and Earth has resources we need. I didn't come all this way to negotiate with primitives. He addressed the entire bridge crew. We attack in 12 hours. This time we do not underestimate them. This time, we crush them completely. On Earth, final preparations reached a fever pitch as the alien fleet was detected entering the inner solar system. In a fortified bunker beneath the Himalayas, representatives from every nation gathered in the newly established United Earth. Defense Council. President Jin, now serving as the first chairperson of the Council, addressed the somber assembly. The colony ships are ready. If Earth falls, 10,000 of our people, scientists, engineers, children, will escape to the Mars and lunar bases. They carry with them our knowledge, our cultures, our hope. Defense Minister Junho stood to deliver his report. Our planetary shield network is online but untested at full capacity. We've deployed our new weapon systems globally and armed our fighters with reverse-engineered technology. All military forces are now under unified command. And the Special Projects Division? President Jin asked. A thin man with round glasses stood up. Project Phoenix is operational, Dr. Minjun reported. If we lose the orbital battle, we can still strike back. Throughout Earth's cities, civilians filed into vast underground shelters built over the past 6 months. Children clutched treasured toys. Parents carried essential supplies. The elderly were helped along by volunteers. There were no borders anymore. No foreigners. Only humans facing extinction together. In New York, Tokyo, Lagos, and dozens of other cities, the same scene played out. Families separated as those with essential skills reported for duty, while others moved underground. Tearful goodbyes were exchanged, perhaps final ones. Little Junho, only 7 years old, clutched his father's uniform as they stood at the entrance to the Tokyo shelter. You have to come back, the boy insisted, fighting back tears. Captain Tae-woo knelt and pressed his forehead against his son's. I will do everything possible to come back to you, he promised, his voice steady despite the weight in his chest. And if I can't, remember what I taught you. Humans never give up. We keep fighting, we keep learning, we keep living. As the alien fleet entered Earth orbit, humanity held its collective breath. This time, there was no element of surprise on either side, just cold, calculated warfare between a technologically superior invader and a species fighting for its very existence. Director Kim's voice echoed through the hegemony fleet. Begin the assault. The sky lit up with energy weapons more powerful than anything Earth had witnessed before. The planetary shield network glowed blue under the onslaught, holding in some sectors, failing in others. Cities darkened as power grids overloaded, but, unlike the first attack, backup systems immediately activated. General Sunwoo stood in central command, watching the holographic display showing the battle unfolding above. Launch all fighters. Activate orbital defense platforms. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. Around the planet, concealed missile silos opened, launching not conventional nuclear weapons, but new hybrids equipped with salvaged alien technology. Fighter squadrons rose to meet the invaders, now flying craft that incorporated alien metals and power systems. From his flagship, Director Kim watched with growing concern as the humans countered with unexpected ferocity and technology that shouldn't have been possible for them to develop so quickly. They've adapted our shield technology, Commander Park reported, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. And their weapons, they're using focused magnetic accelerators based on our own designs. Impossible, Director Kim snapped. They couldn't have reverse-engineered our technology so quickly, but the evidence was undeniable, as a hegemony cruiser exploded under concentrated fire from Earth's defense platforms. Hour after hour, the battle raged. For every human city destroyed, a hegemony ship was damaged or disabled. For every million humans killed by orbital bombardment, the survivors fought back with increasing determination and increasingly sophisticated weapons. The hegemony, accustomed to quick subjugations, found itself in a protracted conflict against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each engagement. In her laboratory, deep beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Heejin worked frantically to complete the prototype that might turn the tide. Around her, sections of alien technology were connected to human computers in a bizarre technological hybrid. "It doesn't have to be pretty," she told her team. "It just has to work once." As the battle entered its third day, with both sides bloodied, but neither broken, humanity prepared to unveil its most closely guarded secret, a weapon born from desperation and the unique human ability to turn disadvantage into opportunity. In orbit, Director Kim faced a reality he had never anticipated, a pre-FTL civilization fighting the hegemony to a standstill. As he prepared to order a final devastating assault on Earth's population centers, alarm klaxons blared across his flagship. "Unknown energy signature detected," a sensor operator shouted. "Massive power buildup from the planet's surface." "Director," Kim's eyes widened as he realized that the humans had saved their greatest surprise for last, and as a blinding light erupted from Earth's surface toward his fleet, he finally understood what Elder Tay had tried to warn the Galactic Council. Humans don't just fight wars, they transform through them. The night sky above the Nevada desert lit up with an unearthly blue glow as Project Phoenix activated for the first time. The massive array of salvaged alien tech mixed with human ingenuity sent a concentrated beam of energy skyward, cutting through the atmosphere like a surgeon's scalpel. In orbit, 30 hegemony warships caught in its path simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. In the control bunker 100 meters below ground, Dr. Heejin collapsed into her chair, exhausted but triumphant. 3 years of relentless work, of trial and horrific error, had led to this moment. Around her, the engineers and scientists erupted in cheers and tears, the first real victory celebration since the war began. "Energy level stable," reported her assistant, voice cracking with emotion. "Cooldown sequence initiated. We can fire again in 6 hours." Dr. Heejin nodded, too drained to speak. Outside their bunker, the war still raged. Earth's cities lay in ruins, billions dead or displaced. But for the first time, the hegemony fleet was in full retreat, pulling back to the dark side of the moon to regroup and assess their losses. Inside his damaged flagship, Director Kim struggled to comprehend what had just happened. One moment, a significant portion of his fleet had been in standard formation. The next, they were simply gone. Not destroyed in the conventional sense, but erased as though they had never existed. "Full report," he demanded, blood streaming, from a cut on his forehead where he'd been thrown against a console during the sudden maneuver to escape the energy beam. Commander Park approached, her uniform singed and one arm hanging uselessly at her side. 30 vessels lost with all hands, she reported, her voice hollow. No debris, no energy signatures remaining. Whatever weapon they deployed appears to create a localized disruption in space-time itself. "Impossible," Director Kim whispered. But the word had lost all meaning when it came to humans. Everything about this campaign had defied the established rules of warfare and technological development. How could they have developed such technology? They were pre-FTL less than 3 years ago. In the 3 years since first contact, humanity had evolved in ways that should have taken centuries. United by existential threat, the petty differences that had divided them fell away. Scientific breakthrough after breakthrough occurred not through methodical research but through desperate innovation. But the most significant development remained hidden in a facility buried beneath the Antarctic ice. There, protected by layers of rock and frozen water, Dr. Minjin stood before what appeared to be a ring of alien metal 20 meters in diameter, crackling with energy that distorted the very air around it. "Status?" he asked the team of physicists monitoring dozens of screens displaying equations and energy readings. "Stable," replied Dr. Jihu, her fingers dancing across her keyboard. "The equations from Dr. Heejin's team were correct. We've successfully replicated the spatial displacement field from the alien drive cores." "And navigation?" Dr. Jihu hesitated. "Theoretical at this point. We know the field can create the wormhole effect we've observed in the alien tech, but controlling where it leads, that's still problematic. Dr. Minjun nodded, eyes fixed on the pulsing ring. We're out of time for perfect solutions. Begin the test sequence. Across the room, a robotic arm extended, pushing a small probe toward the energy field. As it touched the boundary, the probe seemed to stretch impossibly, before vanishing with a flash of blue light. Probe signal lost. Someone announced. Dr. Minjun's shoulders slumped. Another failure. Until a screen suddenly lit up with incoming data. Probe signal reacquired, Dr. Jihu shouted, her professional demeanor breaking. Location, this can't be right. She looked up, eyes wide. The probe is transmitting from a position near Jupiter's orbit. Transit was instantaneous. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They had just sent an object faster than light, the threshold that separated planetary species from interstellar ones. Humanity had just changed categories in the cosmic hierarchy. Dr. Minjun allowed himself a small smile. Begin scaling up the prototype. I need to inform the Defense Council immediately. In the ruins of what had once been Geneva, the Defense Council gathered in a bunker deep beneath the former United Nations headquarters. The chamber was Spartan, military, a far cry from the elegant diplomatic halls that had stood above. President Jin, her hair now completely gray despite being only 52, studied the holographic display showing Earth's defensive positions and the retreating hegemony fleet. They'll be back, said General Sunwoo, now wearing an eye patch over the socket lost during the Battle of Seoul. This retreat is tactical, not strategic. Director Kim can't return to hegemony space having failed to subjugate a pre-FTL species. Then, perhaps, said President Jin slowly, we should ensure we are no longer pre-FTL when they return. The room fell silent as a new figure was escorted in. Dr. Minjun, his journey from Antarctica having taken nearly 20 hours through the war-torn transportation network. Madam President, Honored Council, he began without preamble. Project Pathfinder has succeeded. We have achieved faster-than-light transportation. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The implications were staggering, not just for the war, but for humanity's future. Defense Minister Junho was the first to recover. Can it be weaponized? Dr. Minjun nodded. The principles are similar to our displacement cannon, but with greater precision, and more importantly, we can adapt it to our largest vessels. How long? Asked President Jin. 3 months to outfit the prototype fleet. We've been building in parallel with the research, hoping for this breakthrough. President Jin turned to Admiral Hana, commander of Earth's Unified Space Forces. Ready your best crews. Training begins immediately. 4 months later, in a secret shipyard constructed within the Hollow Asteroid series, Admiral Hana walked the length of humanity's first true starship. Named Phoenix Rising, it incorporated everything humanity had learned from studying alien technology, enhanced by human innovation and desperation. 200 similar ships were in various stages of completion throughout the solar system, constructed in asteroid hollows, hidden lunar craters, and the atmospheres of gas giants. For 3 years, humanity had appeared to be fighting a purely defensive war. In reality, they had been preparing for this moment, the moment they would take the fight to the enemy. Admiral Hana stopped before the assembled crew of the Phoenix Rising, 200 men and women selected from every nation on Earth, the best pilots, engineers, and tacticians humanity had to offer. 3 years ago, she began, her voice carrying through the hangar. Aliens came to our world, believing us easy prey. They judged us by our technology, not by our spirit. They thought us divided, weak, primitive. She paused, looking at the determined faces before her. They were wrong. Murmurs of agreement ran through the assembled crew. Tomorrow, we take this fight to them. Not to their military bases or outposts, but to the heart of their war machine, their supply chains, their manufacturing centers, their fuel refineries. Admiral Hana's eyes hardened. The hegemony believes war is about superior firepower. We will show them that war is about will and strategy. In the front row, Captain Jihye, formerly a commercial airline pilot before first contact, felt a shiver run down her spine. 3 years ago, she had been flying passengers from Seoul to Singapore. Tomorrow, she would be piloting humanity's first FTL strike mission. The plan was audacious, borderline suicidal. While the main hegemony fleet remained engaged near Earth, dealing with the aftermath of Project Phoenix's devastation, 200 human ships would make coordinated FTL jumps to key hegemony supply worlds. They would strike not at heavily defended military targets, but at the infrastructure that made the hegemony's war possible. As Captain Ji-hye walked through her ship later that night, checking systems and speaking with her crew, she paused at the observation deck. Through the viewport, she could see Earth in the distance, a blue marble scarred by war but still alive, still fighting. "We were never meant to be warriors," said her executive officer, coming to stand beside her. "No," Ji-hye agreed quietly, "but neither were we meant to be conquered." In his flagship, now repaired and strengthened, Director Kim reviewed the battle plans for what he hoped would be the final assault on Earth. The humans had bloodied them, yes, but the hegemony still held overwhelming technological advantage in most areas. This time, there would be no underestimation, no tactical errors. "Fleet status," he demanded. 260 vessels combat ready, reported his new second-in-command, Commander Day. All equipped with the new dispersal shields to protect against their energy weapon. Director Kim nodded in satisfaction. 3 more days of preparation, then they would end this irritating resistance once and for all. Neither he nor any member of the Hegemony Command had any idea that at that very moment, humanity's FTL fleet was preparing to jump, or that the war was about to enter a phase no one in the Galactic Council had thought possible. A pre-FTL species taking the fight directly to an established interstellar power. As the countdown reached 0 in the Ceres shipyard, Captain Ji-hye took a deep breath and gave the order that would change the course of the war. "Activate FTL drive. Take us to the stars." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so full. Representatives from all 47 spacefaring civilizations crowded the tiered seating, with dozens more observers standing along the walls. The air hummed with tension and whispered conversations in 100 different languages. Today would mark a historic moment, the formal recognition of humanity as the newest member of the interstellar community. Elder Tae, now so frail he could barely stand even with assistance, had insisted on being present. His withered hand trembled as it gripped his ceremonial staff, but his eyes remained sharp as they fixed on the main entrance. The massive doors swung open, and a hush fell over the assembly. The human delegation entered, walking with measured steps toward the central podium. They wore simple but elegant blue uniforms, each with a small emblem showing Earth surrounded by stars. Leading them was Ambassador Yoon, formerly a university professor before the war, now the voice of humanity to the stars. Elder Tae noted with interest how other council members reacted to the humans. Some leaned forward with undisguised curiosity. Others shifted uncomfortably, hands straying to ceremonial weapons they weren't permitted to activate in the chamber. Most telling was the hegemony delegation, seated in the far corner, their numbers greatly reduced, their once proud Director Kim conspicuously absent. 5 years. It had been just 5 years since the hegemony had dismissed his warnings and launched their simple conquest of Earth. 5 years that had transformed humanity from a planetary civilization into a galactic power, not through gradual advancement, but through a crucible of fire that had forged them into something unprecedented. The speaker called the session to order, her insectoid mandibles clicking as she recited the formal words. "Today we welcome representatives of Sol 3, known to its inhabitants as Earth, into the community of spacefaring civilizations." Ambassador Yoon stepped forward. "On behalf of humanity, I thank the Council for this recognition. We come seeking peaceful cooperation and exchange of knowledge with all civilizations who share that goal." The words were diplomatic, but none present could ignore their subtext. The hegemony's surrender had been unconditional, signed just 3 months earlier, after a campaign that had stunned the galactic community. Human fleets, impossible ships that shouldn't have existed, had appeared seemingly everywhere at once, striking not at military targets, but at the infrastructure that made the hegemony's war machine possible. supply depots, manufacturing centers, fuel refineries, critical systems the hegemony had never needed to heavily defend in previous conflicts, were suddenly vulnerable. When they diverted forces to protect these facilities, the humans simply jumped to new targets. It was warfare unlike anything seen in galactic history. Before we proceed with the formal induction, the speaker continued, Elder Tay of the Pax, Sepulide has requested to address the council. A murmur swept through the chamber. It was unusual for anyone to speak at an induction ceremony beyond the formal statements. Elder Tay was helped to the podium by two attendants, Ambassador Yoon, respectfully stepping aside. 5 years ago, the ancient alien began, his voice surprisingly strong despite his frail body. I stood in this very spot and warned this council about humans. I advised caution, patience, restraint. He paused, his eyes sweeping across the chamber. Even I underestimated them. The chamber was utterly silent now. In 5 years, they transformed from a planetary species to a galactic power, not through superior technology, which they lacked, but through adaptability born of conflict. They did not merely copy the technologies used against them, they improved upon them in ways none of us had considered. Elder Tay turned slightly to face the human delegation directly. I studied your history before you joined us among the stars. You are not naturally warlike, despite your conflicts. You are, at your core, builders and explorers. When forced to fight, you do so ferociously, but when offered peace, you embrace it with equal passion. He turned back to the full council. Let today mark not just the addition of a new species to our ranks, but the beginning of a new understanding. The galaxy has grown comfortable, perhaps complacent. The humans will challenge us, our assumptions, our methods, our very understanding of what is possible. With a final nod to Ambassador Yoon, Elder Tay was helped back to his seat, leaving the chamber in thoughtful silence. The formal ceremony proceeded, with the traditional exchange of knowledge gifts and the presentation of Earth's coordinates for inclusion in the Galactic Navigational Network. Throughout the proceedings, Ambassador Yoon maintained perfect diplomatic composure, betraying no hint of the emotions she must have felt representing a species that had, just 5 years earlier, been fighting for its very survival. Later, at Tu, the reception held in one of the council's vast gardens, Elder Tay found himself approached by Ambassador Yoon. She carried 2 glasses of a clear liquid, offering one to him. Water from Earth, she explained, from a spring in a place called New Zealand, one of the few regions that remained untouched during the war. Elder Tay accepted the glass with a slight bow. A thoughtful gesture, Ambassador. I wanted to thank you, she said simply, for trying to protect us even when we were unknown to you. The elder alien made a gesture his species used to indicate rueful amusement. My protection proved unnecessary. You defended yourselves far more effectively than the council ever could have. At great cost, Ambassador Yoon replied, her composure slipping slightly to reveal the weight of memory. 2 billion dead. Cities reduced to ash. Children who will never know a world without war. Yet you offer peace to your former attackers, Elder Tay observed. Many species would have demanded retribution, perhaps even the complete destruction of the hegemony. Ambassador Yoon looked out over the gathering, where humans now mingled with dozens of alien species, exchanging cautious greetings and curious questions. Retribution would not rebuild our cities or bring back our dead, she said quietly. And despite everything, we haven't forgotten who we were before the stars brought us conflict. We were explorers, dreamers, creators. A small smile touched her lips. We still are. Your terms were still quite substantial, Elder Tay noted. Reparations, technology transfers, and dismantlement of their offensive military capacity, Ambassador Yoon acknowledged. Firm but fair. We needed to ensure they could never threaten us or any other developing species again. Across the garden, a small commotion caught their attention. A young human woman, Dr. Hai-Jin, recognizable from news broadcasts across the galaxy as the architect of several key human technological breakthroughs, was engaged in animated discussion with representatives from 3 different species, all scientists according to their insignia. "Your physicist appears to be causing quite a stir," Elder Tay observed. Ambassador Yoon smiled. "Dr. Hyejin is explaining her unified field theory. Apparently, it contradicts several established principles of galactic physics. And yet her technology works," Elder Tay noted. "That will disturb many who have built careers on those established principles." "Change often does," Ambassador Yoon replied. "But I believe that's why we're here. Not just to join the galactic community as it exists, but to help it grow." As the reception continued into the night, more scenes like this played out across the garden. Human engineers discussed propulsion theories with Pax Cephalides shipbuilders. Human doctors compared notes with alien medical professionals on cross-species treatment protocols. Human artists and musicians shared their creations with fascinated counterparts from across the galaxy. On a balcony overlooking the gathering, 2 figures stood in quiet conversation: Admiral Hana, architect of humanity's stunning counteroffensive, and the hegemony's Commander Park, one of the few high-ranking officers to survive the war. "Your tactics were unconventional, Commander," Park admitted reluctantly. "We never considered that a species would target economic infrastructure rather than military assets." "We couldn't match your firepower," Admiral Hana replied simply, "so we didn't try." "The galaxy will change because of what you've done," Commander Park said. "Many species are already questioning established military doctrine." Admiral Hana gazed up at the unfamiliar stars above the Council world. "Good. Change means growth." As the celebrations wound down and delegates prepared to return to their vessels, Ambassador Yoon found herself once more beside Elder Tay, who had chosen to remain, despite his obvious fatigue. "What happens now?" she asked the ancient alien. Elder Tay considered the question for a long moment. "Now the real work begins, building trust, establishing relations, finding your place in a community of species far older than your own. And will they accept us? Truly?" The elder gestured toward the departing delegates, many deep in conversation with their human counterparts. "They are already beginning to. You fascinate them, frighten them, yes, but also intrigue them. You've accomplished in 5 years what takes most species centuries." Ambassador Yoon's expression grew serious. "Our diplomatic missions will open with the same phrase to every world. We come in peace and hope to remain that way." Elder Tay made a sound that might have been a chuckle. A polite reminder of what happens when that peace is broken. Diplomatic indeed. As they parted ways, Elder Tay watched the human delegation board their shuttle, a sleek vessel that incorporated technologies from a dozen different civilizations, all improved upon in uniquely human ways. He thought back to his warning from 5 years ago in the disastrous war that followed. The hegemony had been advised to beware of humans, yet they had opted for conflict. The price of that error would echo through galactic history for generations to come, not as a story of destruction, but as the beginning of a new galactic order, one that would never again underestimate the species from Sol 3.